We're live. Welcome to Lee Stafford Education. My name is Lee Stafford and I'm going to be your compere for the next hour and a half. Guys, we love questions. So please today ask as many questions as you wish. There's no such thing as a silly question today. We certainly won't make you feel silly for any questions that you ask. It can be about the Speed Ombre that you see James presenting today. It can be anything about the LSE recipes, anything to do with this magical industry we all find ourselves so fortunate to be a part of. If you enjoy the presentation today, then please like and subscribe to the channel, because we're going to have plenty more of these sessions coming up. And if you subscribe, then you will be notified when we've got a new show. If you click the bell next to subscribe, you will be subscribed. That just leaves me to thank you guys for being here today. I know there's plenty of places, or not plenty of places, but plenty of things you could be doing right now. So we really appreciate you spending some time with us. So let's kick things off. Today's LSE staff is an international educator. He's a social maverick with 3.5 million views on YouTube and 50,000 subscribers. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the one and only James Atkinson.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we're going to bring you some fantastic Speed Ombre technique in this particular video. But first things first, I just want to thank each and every one of you for your contribution to the hairdressing industry. Teachers make the difference. In my humble opinion, teachers make the difference. So you guys are the people who are bringing up the next generation, and I have a debt of gratitude to you all for that. So wonderful stuff, guys, and being part of the Lee Stafford Academy system will hopefully bring you the tools that you need to take your students to a whole new level, and we can really raise the game in our wonderful industry. Britain, across the globe, is the kind of standout nation for hairdressing. I hear that so much when I'm online. My channel goes out to 146 countries, and the comments, people, talking about British hairdressing standards is always wonderful to be held in such high esteem. So thank you so much for your contribution. Now, today's technique is wonderfully simple. We're going to take some of the LSE principles of presectioning and some of the principles of the LSE Ombre recipe, and we're going to create something new with a little bit of a twist, a faster method than you will have seen previously. But before we do that, what we're going to do is just take a minute to center ourselves, because it's very easy to sit there in front of the screen and just sort of stare into the screen. Now, we've got a comments box down below. There's no such thing as a silly question, so I'm going to ask a general question, and I want you all guys just to drop in the comments box down below. Have you had a good morning? If you've had a good morning, then we want you to put yes in the comments box. If you've had a rubbish morning, then just put no. Give me a yes or a no while I drink my tea. Let's just start casual. It's morning. We've all just
Lots of comments coming in.
Good. Any no's?
Martin Holmes. Michael Saunders is feeling good.
Good. Perfect. Right. Well, on that note, some of us may have had a good morning and some of us may have had a bad morning. So what we're going to do is we're going to take just a minute to really focus our attentions on the learnings. So if you'd all join me in just closing your eyes. So we're going to close our eyes and just think about your breathing. Just think about breathing in and out. So it's, unfortunately, this is what we do to live. So I think you'll do it very easily. We're just going to breathe in and out. So in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I just want you to hear yourself breathe. Don't speak, no speaking needed. Just hear yourself breathing. In and out. In and out. Great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a deep breath in. We're going to hold it. We're going to hold it for a 1 count. So we're going to deep breathe in and hold it for 1. We're going to breathe in. We're going to hold it for 2. 1, 2. And breathe in. We're going to hold it for 3. 1, 2, 3. Good. And out. Beautiful. We're going to do it for 4. And in and hold for 4. Good. And in, and we're going to hold for 5. This is the last one. We're going to come back down in a second. So 1, 2, 3, and out. Good. Lovely. And then we're going to do 4 again. So in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great stuff. And out. Lovely. And 3. And in. 1, 2, 3, and out. Good stuff. Lovely. And we're going to go to 2. And in. 1, 2. Good. And then we're going to do 1. And breathe out hard. Good. Right then. Hopefully we're all feeling very relaxed after that, and we've focused our minds and we've dispelled some of the bad things that have happened to us this morning, yesterday, taken away the worries that we had about being in this education forum, because, you know, learning is to be the learner, to be on the other end of the scale, as a lot of you are teachers, is always a daunting task. Even myself knows what it feels like to be a learner, because I am a perpetual learner. I am an avid learner. I am a lifelong student, and it may not necessarily be hair that I'm learning about, but it might other things. There's so many things out there that I want to know about, and so I spend a lot of my free time learning. So I appreciate the learning journey, but sometimes we get stuck in a rut in our lives, don't we? We get stuck in this place where learning becomes an irrelevant part of our lives, and so therefore we forget the anxiety and the fear and all those things that we can feel from learning something and not getting it right. So it's really, really important for us to acknowledge the other side of the story. So thank you for joining us today on this journey to understand a little bit more about how we can adapt the Lee Stafford recipes once we have mastered the Big Tens and we can cook that perfect omelette. So right then, let's get on with the technique, shall we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the pre-section on one side. I've already put half of it in, and so I'm going to put the other half in for you guys to be able to see. So if we look at our mannequin head here, we've got a triangle section that runs from a side parting. She's got a left-hand side parting. Triangle section that runs down to the front recession by the eye, and then we've got a diamond section in between another triangle section at the back here, and then we've got a triangle section dead in the back. So the reason that we pre-section is because it gives us a very clear roadmap to the end goal. How we are best going to deliver a technique is by having a vision of how it's going to end up. So my vision for this technique is already pre-planned. It is there waiting for me just to unclip and paint the sections. So there's no getting lost in this technique. So what we're going to do is come a little bit closer and show you how we're going to pre-section this particular look. So just going to tilt my lady's head down a little bit so you can see this is the top of her head. Right, we are going to find the high point on our head, and so the way we would do that is, generally speaking, and if anybody knows how we would do this, then put it in the comments box now. Drop it in the comments box. How would we find the high point on the head? What would be the way to find the high point on the head? Drop it in the comments box now, and while I talk about it. So what we would get is our comb, and we would place it on the top of our client's head, and that would determine the high point on our client. What we'd also need to understand is that the chin was in a neutral position, because if the chin is down, the high point will shift forwards. So always make sure the client's head is in a neutral position, and that way we will always get the perfect high point. So I'm going to keep the client's head in a neutral position, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line that is going to go from that high point down towards the recession. So we're going to draw a diagonal line that travels down towards the recession. So if you've got a pen or paper or anything around you that you can grab now and start writing down, or taking some drawings so that you can remember how to do these techniques, then be my guest, go for it. And I'm going to show you this presection. I'm going to talk you through it again, and you might be able to take it down and not need to revisit this video once Lee has posted it onto YouTube. We can just take this information and go away and practice it on our mannequin heads that we've potentially got at home. Because practice, I don't believe in practice makes perfect, but practice makes permanent. If we practice something within a short period of time, having learnt it, we will ultimately remember it. If we don't practice it, we probably won't remember it. So we've got a triangle section now in this front here that is effectively split into two. So we've got a triangle section that comes down towards the corner of the recession that is split into two. And then what we're going to do then is we're going to put another triangle section in here. So we're going to take our section, I'm going to tilt the head over so you guys can see. Now don't worry if you can't see it perfectly, because it's the top of the head and we've only got one camera angle. We're going to then come in and we're going to take a section that runs down towards the back of the ear. So we're going to be about 2 inches away from the back of the ear. And then that section is going to connect into the section that is already in the back. So we've got another triangle section. So we've got two triangle sections here.
James,
yes,
I noticed that your presectioning is very, very clean. I've got two questions for you. Is presectioning as important with colour as it is with cuts? And why is it so important to have that sectioning so clean like you've got it?
Two great questions, Lee. Thank you very much. So answer your first question. Is it as important when you're doing hair colour? Yes, it absolutely is super duper important. And the reason it's important, in my humble opinion, Lee, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, is that the reality is when we are presectioning hair, we are giving ourselves the best possible opportunity to paint it perfectly, and know where we're going and not get confused. Which bit am I supposed to be painting now, and how and when, and all these different things. So that's really, really important to me, from a speed perspective and a results perspective. If we think about our life, especially when we're a commercial hairdresser and we're painting hair in the salon, we need to be able to do these things efficiently, and in a timely order, so that we can make money. Because effectively, none of us are doing this for charity. We're doing it because it's our jobs. And so for me, it's really, really important. And the big benefit of presectioning, as to answer your second question, why is it important? Well, it's important because it amplifies the time into a much shorter space. It gives us a clear visual representation of the best way to move through the technique. Because, for instance, if I said to somebody, okay, we're going to do a speed ombre technique right now, and the way that this is going to turn out is we're going to need to have 7 sections on top, and we're going to need to then have the underneath clipped away. Now, it would become very messy and very confusing if we didn't pre-section this technique before we started, purely based on the fact that, you know, these pre-sections, nice and precise and clean and visually clearly indicated on the head as to where I'm going to paint these sections now. And creating balance is really important as well. Balance in the technique is also super duper important, because remember, we're working from a side parting, and so that side parting will have a visual impact on the way this color is balanced. Now, because we're working on a side parting, we've shifted the sections over a little bit, because this is where the color predominantly will sit. Remember, with the balayage techniques, it is really all about mimicking where the sun would catch the hair. We're not putting it in places specifically where the sun isn't going to catch the hair. No one's hair naturally gets lightened underneath specifically because it just doesn't see the sunlight. Hence why we're leaving out these big panels of hair in here, which we are going to paint, but we're going to paint in big surface pieces to create that kind of subtle ombre. And we're going to focus really our attentions on the ends. So let me just show you the pre-section with a bit more of a close-up. So here we have a triangle section. Let me just move that clip out of the way. There's our triangle section. We have a diamond section in here. We have another triangle section just there, a triangle section in the center back, and then we repeat that order on the opposite side. Another triangle, a diamond, and another triangle. So we've got two diamonds opposite each other in the center of the head, triangle, triangle, triangle. It's actually very, very simple, very straightforward. Like all pre-sectioning, it needs to be, put it in the comments box, it needs to be.
James, a lot of people would say, though, that that pre-sectioning, because it takes a bit of time to do, would actually slow down the process. But are you saying the pre-sectioning actually makes the process faster at the end of the day?
Well, that's absolutely, that is what I'm saying, 100%, because you'll see in just a second, once I actually start get the painting side of this process, we're going to see where the pre-section really comes into play, and you're going to see the speed element of this technique come to life. Now, once you get used to the pre-section, once you sort of understand how to put the pre-section in, you're going to get it in much, much faster. You can get this pre-section in just a few minutes. And actually, one of the commercial benefits of pre-sectioning as well, from my perspective, I work with apprentices, and it's the very, very, very first thing that I teach them is pre-sectioning, because I can say to them, right, I'm going to do ombre, speed ombre, and they know what the pre-section for that technique looks like. And so therefore, I can go out the back, mix up my color, eat my sandwich because I don't take a lunch break, and they can put in my speed ombre pre-section, and they learn to handle hair, and I get to have my lunch.
Good. We've got a question from Tony. She says, I've watched your videos on YouTube for full head of highlights. You do the 4 sections. In LSE, we do 10 sections, which is sometimes confusing. Would you clear that, please?
Hi, Tony. Yeah, Tony was in my live the other night. Hello, Tony. I do a live on a Wednesday night on my channel, and Tony was with us. So thank you for your question, Tony. So that particular pre-section is about speed, because that video that comes from is converting somebody that was previously had a scalp bleach and wanted to take their hair back to something a little bit more natural. I'm sure you'll remember having watched it. So but for anybody else that hasn't seen it, it's all about speed. So we split the hair into 4 sections. I'm using extra wide foils, and I'm just going up the head horizontally. But because I'm just simply going up the head horizontally, and I'm not going to be changing the angle that I'm going to paint the foils at, because sometimes I use diagonals, sometimes I use horizontal, sometimes I use vertical sections. If I'm going to change the pattern that I'm going to use, I will put in a bit more of a precise pre-section. But saying that, on my channel, equally, I have got a pre-section on there for highlighting that is very, very similar to the LSE recipe. And that is what I would use for a full head highlight breakdown. I was going to use a traditional highlighting technique and I was just replacing someone's natural highlight look, then I would use a bigger presection. So if you want to see that video, then it's on my channel, and you'll see that I break the head down into much smaller pieces that are easier to take on. It's not the same as the Lee Stafford recipe, but it's very similar, because there's not a million ways to break the head down when you're going to put a foil in that is 90 millimeters wide and however long. You can only break the head down into so many pieces. So hopefully that answers your question.
That's your YouTube channel, right, James? The Life of Hair, that's running
The
along
Life of
the page
That's
now.
it. That's me.
If anyone wants to watch James on YouTube, it's The Life of Hair.
Good stuff. Right then, so let's get on with the painting element. So what I've done is underneath this hair. Now remember, balayage to a degree, or ombreing, or whatever you want to call it, the balayage is the technique to sweep. Okay, and the look we're going to create is an ombre. So they're two separate things in a way. But we're going to utilize the high points on this. So when we elevate this section, if I just tap on that to focus it just on there. If we elevate the hair, we're going to create a gully, a little V shape in here. And we can utilize the high points on this to create nice points of light coming higher up. And then we're going to saturate all through the ends. But I've split the hair down behind the back of the ear just to give myself a smaller piece of hair to work on, because there's no need to pre-section this whole section, because we're just simply painting the surface of this piece of hair. So I'm going to load my brush up with a bit of lightener and keep the section elevated horizontally 90 degrees relative to the floor. So we're holding it 90 degrees relative to the floor. And then we're going to apply the lightener. Now I'm just going to talk roughly about applying lightener to the actual section, but we're going to go a little bit deeper into how we should apply the lightener and what it should look like in a few sections time. So do hang around for that, if in case you think at this point you've seen what I've got to say and it's going to be no change. We're going to talk about all the elements of doing a balayage ombre technique, and we're using the technique balayage because we're sweeping to apply the color, but we're going to create an ombre type of effect. Does anybody know the difference? If you do know the difference, then maybe you could write it in the comments box down below whilst I'm painting. If you do know the difference between a balayage and an ombre, then drop it in the comments box down below.
James, could you put the presection diagram? Could we, because Jennifer's just asked if we could put that up at some point so we could get a clear view of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can put you I can do a head sheet, and we can have pop that up onto the what would be the best way to get this out to you? I can do it 100%. Leave it to us how we might distribute it to you. That's going to be a question for Lee in terms of distribution.
Maybe we can do it later, because we're having a chat at 5 o'clock. We'll talk about that with everybody in a little while. But maybe yes, we can put the diagram up there. Then, what do you reckon?
Absolutely, I can knock it up at lunchtime, and we can have it live. Perfect. What a great idea, Lee. That's why you're the man you are, eh? Full of great ideas. So now we're going to come around to the back of the head, okay? And we're just going to split the hair into two. So we're going to basically split this whole thing into 4 quadrants. But some people say to me, well, how do you know where to split the section? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Back of the ear, center back, and repeat that on the opposite side. Remember, we're going to elevate the hair 90 degrees. Now, some hair falls away. Don't worry about it. We're not painting this hair. This hair is falling away. Remember, we are mimicking what the sun will do to the hair naturally. We're not trying to paint all of the hair. And that's really important to remember when we are dealing with these type of techniques. We are not trying to paint all the hair. That's where it starts to look unnatural, and we're not really then creating a balayage or an ombre effect. We're starting to emanate into something completely different that came from California and LA and Miami, where they were making the ends much, much blonder. Really, traditionally, this is a very, very simple surface painting technique that you'll see here. And what you'll see when I painted that first section, if you're watching closely, was that I didn't saturate the underneath of the section. I'm just simply painting the product onto the surface of the hair, and I'm not saturating the underneath. And for a lot of people, they think this is kind of scary and not going to create much of a result. But I've got this pre-painted and finished look right next to me, which I'll show you at the end. And you guys will see that actually it creates a wonderfully balayaged finish, and it's got beautiful dimension and texture in the hair. The great thing about balayage, unlike highlights, is that you can create amazing textures in the hair, because we can use hair to create texture. We can use color, sorry, to create texture, movement, and by creating shadows and lighter pieces in the hair. So the reason we're not focusing too much attention on how much lightener we're putting on these underneath sections is because we really aren't going to have naturally sunlight and hair that's that light underneath. But we do want some continuity to our look, so we're putting in these larger panels underneath, and we're just painting them on nice and quickly. Now, you'll have probably noticed, you know, we're going through this quite quickly. Once we've done these underneath sections, remember, we've only got 7 sections to paint. 7 sections to paint. So we're going to get through this really, really quickly in just a second once we start moving through these sections. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you blend away any lines or demarcation that you might create in just a second. But first of all, we're just going to focus on thinking about how balayage should look as a technique rather than the way people expect it to look. The thing about
questions here, James. A couple of questions.
Yeah,
Sophie says, how close to the roots do you go with the colour?
Very, very good question. So I'm going about 1 centimetre off the roots with my, we're going to call this a point of light, or I call it a point of light. I'm about 1 centimetre to 1 inch away from the root area with my points of light on each of my sections. And I'm only really focusing like a lot of colour towards the ends, because I want the shadow and contrast to be on the underneath. Now, some people get their head around this technique, and a bit like when you get your head around the LSE recipes, you can break these techniques down even further. You could put in more sections if you really like to get more color in the bottom side of the section. If you want more color in here, you could put another diamond in there, for instance. You can change these techniques, but we can add to them as we go, as we learn the fundamentals of the technique.
And tell me this, James. Kooky said, how long would this Speed Ombre take?
20 minutes to apply and about probably 5 minutes to put in. So 25 to 30 minutes, dependent on, you know, how proficient you are at painting. If you obviously have to correct any mistakes and things like that, little bits of color that you've got in places you didn't expect it, then it'll obviously add time on. So yeah, 25 to 30 minutes. And this is kind of the very first technique that I teach my apprentices. One, I want them to be able to pre-section it for me so I can eat that sandwich. And the other thing is that, you know, it's a really, really simple and quick technique for them to start understanding the premise of painting hair. So remember, with balayage, guys, what we're looking for is something natural, undone, sun-kissed. We're not trying to turn her completely blonde. That's where we've got confused with balayage techniques and ombre techniques. This Speed Ombre technique. So if I don't know if anybody commented the difference between an ombre and a balayage, but the difference is contrast. So an ombre will be much more faded from the root area down towards the ends, with a lot more color towards the ends of the sections, whereas an ombre will have less color. So this is where this is a mashup of the techniques on the LSE recipe. We've obviously got more color saturation through the ends, and so therefore it's more akin to an ombre, but I have modified using the LSE principles of presectioning, etc., to create a little bit more of a speedier technique that is a little bit softer than a kind of true ombre style. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how this will work out. So now we have gone through our underneath sections. it's time to drop down some of our top sections. Now we're going to paint each of our top sections in a slightly different way to create different looks. So the first thing we're going to do, is that too low? Yeah, that's too low. Let's change that, 2 seconds.
We're getting lots and lots of questions, guys. This is fantastic stuff. We'll try to answer as many as we can. Jade has said, how come you're not using foils? Will it change the end result, James?
Good question, Jade. Wonderful stuff. So yes and no. Foil is obviously a highlighting thing, generally speaking, and I think balayage is a freehand hair painting thing. So we don't want to get too kind of overexcited putting foils in. We want it to be a free and easy technique. Now, one of the downsides to not using foil would be that we aren't going to get the incubation from the lightener, because obviously, if anybody knows what makes lightener work, drop it in the comments box now. What makes lightener work? Put it in the comments box right now. And so incubation is not about heat necessarily. It's actually more about it drying out. So, and if we stop, has anybody put it in there, Lee? What makes lightener work? Tell me what we've got. We've got any answers there?
We've got here, yeah, we've got a good one here from Jennifer. Jennifer says foils wouldn't lighten it more, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah, it would lighten it more, and it would prevent it drying out, the oxygen getting to the product, and therefore once the oxygen gets to the product, obviously it makes it work, but equally it dries the product out, and when the product dries out, it stops working. So if we covered it with foil, then we would keep the product working for longer and we get a lighter result. The problem is, because we're painting just the surface, it won't stick very well. So I don't recommend foil 100%, but what I do recommend is cling film or a acetate sheeting for you to apply to the top of your sections, and that will give you much better lift, and you'll get a lighter end result.
And could you use your fingers to blend the color up to the roots, James?
That is exactly where we're going now, Lee. Thank you very much for that introduction. So I was on the underneath, wasn't focusing on the actual painting of the hair, but on these top sections, we're really going to get into the painting. Okay, and how to paint and what it should look like and the things that you should look for and the ways that you can start blending out the product should you need to. So we've got a diamond shaped section here that we've taken down, and that diamond shaped section, I'm going to tilt my head over. The diamond shaped section is this one that sits in between the two triangles, and we're going to elevate this section out from the head shape. So our client would either need to put their head over to the side, or you would need to get on your tippy toes a little bit, depending on how tall you were. But I would always get your client to put their head on their side. And we're going to elevate the hair 90 degrees relative to the floor. Now, what we're going to do, we've loaded our brush up with product, and then we're going to apply the product with the side of the brush. We're going to start halfway down the hair, and we're going to apply with the side of the brush. So you can probably see, yeah, you can see that clearly. Good. Can you see how thick the product is going on? Right. What we don't want to be able to do is see the hair that we want lightened. We don't want to be able to see the hair that we want lightened. So the way that I think about it is, if I was going to ice a cake, I wouldn't be leaving out cake. You wouldn't be able to see the cake. You would be all covered. And that is how we want our lightener to be. So when we apply the lightener, we're using the side of the brush. Now, if we were using the teeth of the brush take the product off and make it thinner. We don't want that, because we won't get the lift that we're looking for from our result. So we're going to apply with the side, and we want to be brave with how much we put in there. Now, you see that piece of hair fell down? Don't worry about it. It's contrast. It doesn't belong in this section because we're not painting through the underneath of the section. So it's okay. It can fall down, and that's all right. So we're going to use the side of the brush to apply the product. Now, as Lee just alluded to, there's other things, there's other tools that we have upon us all the time that we can use to blend. One of those tools is our finger, and we can come in, and where the hair changes from where we want a transition, we can start to disperse the product gently using our finger to blend up the product.
And what's the benefit of that, James?
Greatly, thank you very much. This will change the saturation, the amount of product that's in this small area here. Remember, we want lots of product here, but we want less product here. And that will create a beautiful blend. That's the benefit, Lee. It will create a beautiful blend towards the root area.
We've
so
got
it's really
Jensen, James, and she says, how would they go about getting an apprenticeship with professionals such as yourself? What tips would you give young people that are looking for? What do they need to do?
I've got a great question, because I actually work with, generally just have one apprentice that is my apprentice, and we have a team of apprentices, but there's always one standout individual that I tend to just be drawn towards and obviously want to focus my attentions on, more succinctly, and they tend to be my personal assistant and work with me closely. And so I know exactly what I'm looking for in that individual. I'm looking for enthusiasm, nothing else. I don't care how naturally talented or not talented they are as a hairdresser. I want them to want it. And you start to see that in young people that come through. If they want it, you can just see it. They're so enthusiastic. They stay later, they work harder. And when they come for their interviews, they are so enthused to be there, and they've done their homework, and they know about certain hairdressers. They know about, certain YouTubers. They know about certain Instagrammers. They've done their homework, and their enthusiasm is palpable. You can see it and feel it. And that is what I personally am looking for. And I see so much of this. They come in, they just sit down. Listen, I don't care how cool or not cool or tough or rough you are in real life outside of the door of my salon. But what I do care about is that you want to be the next best hairdresser that's come out of wherever you live, and that for me is the most important thing. So it's all attitude. It's all about wanting it, turning up with all your bells and whistles on and with the enthusiasm. And I know from a fact, Lee will agree with this, and anybody else that I talk to, if you get that kid that comes in the door that's, full of it and knows her stuff, even if she learned it the week before, I don't actually care. The fact that she went out and learnt it, or he went out and learnt it and wanted it enough to get to be bothered to understand who these people are, what the industry's about, and come to me with that sort of information. I don't really give a monkey's whether they've never picked up a brush, a comb, a tint bowl in their life, because I know that I can teach them all those things. What I need them to do is want to be taught.
That's brilliant information. James, if they came to you with all of that you've just said, and they also could do a Big 10 in every LSC recipe,
mate,
how valuable would that be to you?
So valuable, because I would know that within no time at all, I'd have them on the shop floor, because if they can do a Big 10 under the Lee Stafford standards, I am looking at turning that person straight into a graduate stylist, and the graduate stylist program that I run is pretty comprehensive. We really do, make the most of, our graduates, and they get to be on the shop floor very, very quickly, and they get clients very, very quickly. And, the reality is, if they came to me with a great attitude and a Big 10 certification, then they would be a very, very busy, well-paid little stylist well within 6 months.
Brilliant. There's
100%.
Brilliant. Thanks, James. There's a question from Joe. He said, are you applying the product on both sides of the section or just the top?
So it's just the surface. We're only painting the surface on every single section. Remember, we're just mimicking sun lightning, so it's only ever on the surface. And we're using it to create texture within the hair as well. Remember that it's all about texture. So we're just painting the surface. We're using the side of the brush to apply the product. Let me just tilt that down a little bit. Hold on. 2 seconds.
There's a question here from Jennifer. I'd just like to pick up on this because she said, is there any additional courses we could take as well as doing education in college? What we're planning on doing at LSE is doing many more of these sessions that you see now. We will then, you'll be able to come back and watch these sessions as many times as you want. And what we're planning on doing is doing the core LSE recipes with a bit of a spin. It's still really important that you follow the rules of the recipe until you can hit that Michelin star standard. But these videos that we're producing now, they're going to enable you, once you've got that big 10 in the recipe, once you can do that core recipe to a big 10, you can come back and watch the likes of James and Rory and Paul and all the other STAFs. You can watch what they are doing and they'll be putting a little spin on that core recipe, so that you can come back to it. Because let's face it, guys, when you go onto the salon floor, you might have clients that come in that show you a picture that is kind of a short grad, for example, but it's not. It's something slightly different. So these sessions that we're producing now for you are going to be very much from the core Lee Stafford Education recipe, but with a spin, which is really going to make you salon ready when you leave college. So there's going to be plenty more of these sessions that you're seeing now. You can also go onto James's YouTube, subscribe to that, subscribe to this channel as well. And there'll be plenty. And the great thing about that is that a lot of all the work that you're going to be seeing is going to be relevant to what you're learning on a day-to-day basis in the college. So, so subscribe to this channel. There's going to be plenty more coming out, and that will give you plenty more education, and it will give you other options with the core recipes that you're learning at college.
I'm just going to bring you up to speed. Wonderful stuff, Lee. Thank you very much. I'm just going to bring you up to speed. So I've painted the triangle in the back here, and we've painted that in a V shape. The triangle in the back is in a V shape. Oh, there we go. She's come off now. The triangle in the back is in a V shape. Then in this side section, we've taken the diamond section down and we've painted just one singular point of light all the way through to the ends. Again, on this side, exactly the same. They're taking that diamond section down, one singular point of light that's traveling all the way through to the end. So now we're left with the 2 triangle sections in the back and the 2 triangle sections in the front. We're going to start on the back sections and we're going to then take those down and paint them in V shapes, exactly like we did in the back. The V shapes give a nice point of light that travels down nice and seamlessly. Just to add on to what Lee said there is so much education online now that is completely free. You don't ever need to attend a course anymore. I know it's nice to go to a course and it gives you a nice, fuzzy glow to get up and do stuff. But at the same time, what we need to remember is that, especially right now, while we're all kind of locked in our homes, and Amazon, 30 quid, will get you a reasonably good head. 70 quid will get you a really good head, like this one from Pivot Point. Tripod for 25 quid from Amazon. And practice, just practice, and don't cut all its hair off in one go, and don't, do a short grad on the first time, but practice things that you've seen, color techniques, layering techniques, and work your way down from short to long, as you would do with any mannequin head in college. Utilize this time to practice, guys. It is the best time you've ever had in your life to stand in your living room, put on a YouTube video, put on a whatever, Instagram video, and follow it step by step. Pause it, rewind it, watch it again and again and again until you've practiced it and you understand it. And it is just about practicing. Someone said to me the other day, where do you consume, what education do you consume? What education do you recommend? Well, look, there's loads and loads of education out there that is absolutely fantastic. And I recommend so many. I didn't know where to start because there's just so much out there now. But the most important thing is not about consuming the education. It's about trying it. Try it for yourself. See if you like it. And if you like it, then you'll generally stick with it and you'll use it again. But until you've tried it, until you've practiced it, until you've done it yourself, you just become a consumer of information. without actually any way of practically using it. And so it's really important, you know, like when you're doing your big tens, you know, you need to practice them. They're not going to come absolutely naturally. You know, you're going to need to learn the pre-sections. You're going to need to learn how to, you know, hold that particular angle or paint that particular way or whatever, you know. And this is a great time to kind of use your principal techniques that you've learned through LSE and adapt them to techniques that you're watching on Instagram and YouTube and wherever you're watching stuff. Practice makes permanent.
Great stuff, James. Guys, one of our biggest growth tools at LSE is our debrief. After any education, event, haircut, anything we deliver, we do a debrief. We get the team together and we ask two simple questions. What worked? Because we want to make sure we keep doing it. And what can we do better next time? So we keep getting better and better at what we do. Today at 5 o'clock, myself, James, Tony and Mike will be doing a debrief on this live session that we're doing right now. The link is going across the page now. I'm also going to put it in the comments as well. We would love you guys to join us at 5 o'clock for a live debrief. We would love to hear from you. What worked with this session today, and what can we do better next time so we keep improving it for you guys? I'd like to start off by saying that when we do our debriefs, no matter how good the event was, there's always plenty that we can do better next time. So at 5 p.m. today, please join us. The YouTube link is in the comments now. It's going across your page. James will also be putting up the diagram, the pre-sectioning for this Speed Ombre. So please join us then.
Lovely, Lee. Thank you very much. So, guys, what we're doing now is we're painting the second triangle in the back of the head here, okay? The second triangle. So again, we've got our client's head tilted slightly to the side. Remember, you don't have to do that. You can just get on your tippy toes if you can reach. But we're just painting this second side with a V-shaped section. And we want to start applying the product. How far down the head? Put it in the comments box now. How far down the head do I start applying the product? So you guys can start thinking about this technique and remembering how far down the head did I start applying the product. Let me know when we get the first comment in, Lee.
Sure will, mate.
So we start applying the product to the hair. Then once we've got one of those come through, please let me know how I apply the product. What part of the brush do I use to apply the product? It's all on the, it's all right in front of your face right now. If you're not sure of the answer, then just look at the hair that I've just painted. Just look at the hair that I've just painted and you'll work it out. Where did I start applying the product and what part of the brush am I using?
We've got Katie that said 3 to 4 inches and work up with the side of the brush.
Perfect, yes. So dependent on the length of the hair, dependent on the length of the V's, you can start, but I've started roughly halfway. It's actually, it might look like 3 to 4 inches. It's probably more like 6, but it's roughly halfway in this particular instance. And then I've just blended up. I'm using the, did you say the side of the brush, Lee?
Side of the brush, yeah.
Brilliant stuff. So yeah, the side of the brush.
Or the tip of the brush.
The tip of the brush takes the product off. So if we want to blend out, we can use the tip of the brush. If we want to apply the product, we use the side of the brush. Perfect stuff. So if we've got blending to do, if we want to use our finger, we can use our finger to disperse the saturation on the hair. That's also fine. That's a great way of just, we've always got our finger attached to our hand. So that's a great tool to have. And then we've got our brush. We can use the teeth to blend, or we can use the side of the brush to apply. Good stuff, everybody. Right then. So last 2 sections. Here we are, right in the front here. This is it. We're coming up to the last 2 sections. So if you've got any questions you want to know about, do put them in the comments box right now. And then let's see. Oh, I can actually see the comments. I forgot about that. I can see the comments now. Look at that. I've just clicked a button and it's comments popped up. Good stuff. Lovely job. Great. Right. So what we've got now is our two front sections, which are triangles. Remember, we're working in a left-hand side parting. We're going to elevate the hair 90 degrees relative to the floor. And we're only going to paint the front side of these sections. So we're going to start again 50% or 6 inches away from the root, because the hair is about 12 inches long. Okay, and we're going to use the side of our brush to apply. Now, what I'm going to do is come round to this. I'm going to stand to the back of the section so you guys can see, and I'm going to work my way up towards the front hairline. This will create a very subtle face framing money piece, the very, very popular money piece technique that you'll be seeing all over the internet at the moment. Everybody loves a good money piece. So look, we're going to then paint our section back diagonally. So I'm visualizing a diagonal line in my head. Don't start painting horizontally across the section. You'll just get too much color in the hair, and it will start to distract from the technique that you're trying to create and the visuals that you're trying to create with the points of light. Remember, the points of light will draw the eye up towards that point on the head. It will draw the eye up towards that point on the head. So it's really, really important to remember that you've got to think about where your eye is drawn. These
what product are you using, James?
Great question, Lee. So I'm using Redkin Flash Lift, which is a blue powder bleach with 30 volume. I always bump up my developers when I'm using open air, so not covered techniques. Obviously, there's no cling film, there's no foil, there's nothing covering these sections. And remember, I'm a big clean film fan. I would highly recommend you get into clean film or acetate sheeting. ProCare do some great stuff. Or if you don't use ProCare, just go to Tesco's and buy clean film. That's what I quite often do in the salon if I haven't got any other product available to me. Clean film is lighter, it's stickier, it holds to the hair much easier. And to be honest, the idea of trapping in heat, remember the how far away, drop it in the comments box down below. How far away from the scalp does the body heat travel? How far away from the scalp does the body heat travel? Write it in the comments box below, see what everybody's thinking, and then I'll give you the answer in just a second. So the thing about getting the product up and close to the scalp is that the natural core temperature is averagely 36.6 degrees. 36.6 degrees. That's really important to remember, because the rest of the hair that is a certain distance away, 1 inch, yes, good work, 1 inch, we've got 1 inch, well done. 1 inch, exactly, guys, 1 inch, love it, right?
How much would this cost, James? How much do you charge for this Speed Ombre in your salon?
I would be charging probably 75, dependent on how many toners we do, between 75 and 100, and then plus treatments, etc., Olaplex, whatever. So it'd come in at between 105 and 135.
And then you've got the cut on top, James?
Cut on top, yeah, 75 for a haircut with me. So yeah, it's coming in at 200 quid nearly.
So are they a good earner, ombres?
Fan-bloody-tastic. Fantastic, honestly. Probably my biggest earner in the salon. Let me just make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. Remember, we're just starting 50% of the way down the hair side of the brush. Yeah, I mean, wonderful. You know, think about it. How long has this taken? Even talking and answering all the questions and, you know, blah, 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 and all that jazz. We're talking about a technique that takes 30 minutes by the time you've mixed up the color and done all the pre-sectioning and painted sections. Process it for 50 minutes while I'm, you know, doing another client. Generally, obviously, COVID's changed that a little bit, but speed techniques have become more and more important in a commercial sense, in my opinion, because of COVID, because of the restrictions of working at one client at a time. Yeah, it is absolutely winner, winner, chicken dinner. Right then, quickly, just made a quick mistake. Let's zoom in so you guys can see.
You've gone off, James.
Have I?
Yeah, you've lost you.
Oh, hold on a minute. Where have I gone?
Where have you gone?
Your browser has lost connection to your camera. Make sure. Why is that then? Make sure you have the right camera selected.
What
Right.
age would you say this ombre was for, James?
Everybody and anybody. Really, like, seriously, you know, it is one of those techniques that, you know, can be worn by your gran, your auntie, you know, your cousin. There I am. Don't know why that went off. Sorry, folks. Your gran, your auntie, your cousin, whoever you want it on, you can put it on them. You know, it's nice and subtle. It's not too young. I'm not going to, you know, it's not one of those techniques that, you know, it's dyed grey and you've got to be 21 and otherwise you look like, you know, you dyed your hair grey and you're already going grey and all those things that people worry about. You know, it's a really, really versatile, usable technique. Now, just before my camera went off, I was just pointing out that I'd made a wee mistake here. Can you see that bit of color there that's kind of gone off kilter? Just come in with your fingernail and just disperse the product. Don't leave things like that because you will get a blob of color. So you need to come in with your fingers and just take that away and make sure that it doesn't saturate and create a blob in the hair. Really important to manage mistakes as they happen. Don't fix them afterwards, fix them during. So here we are finishing off this front section.
We've got a question here. How does the colour not go onto the other hair?
Great question. It's all down to the thickness of the application. Okay. So what happens is it creates a bit of a shield across the outer surface of the technique. One thing that I would say is if your client's got very, very long hair, right, and they sit against the chair, it will squash the product through to the other side of the section. So be very, very mindful that, you know, like that's easily pressed through if the client sat against a chair. So I'm always very, very conscious to make sure that there's nothing happening in terms of pressing through the section. But you'll see it's all down to the way that it's painted, the saturation levels, and it's not going on the hair underneath. We can kind of, oh, it'd be better if you guys could see that. We can see that it's not going onto the other hair in any places. We've got to get that saturation nice and thick. You see, like even there, look where that hair's laying. There we go. That hair's laying on top of this hair. There's still no color touching the underneath side of that section. So if you get your saturation right, nice and thick, and so it's just sitting really well on the surface. The mixing ratio of your bleach is really important, guys. This is my final hot tip before I give you a recap of the look. Mixing ratios when you're balayaging are of paramount importance, okay? I have a mixing ratio of 45 grams. You might want to write this down if you've got a pen or jot it down on your phone. 45 grams of peroxide to 30 grams of powder. So that's 45 grams of peroxide to 30 grams of powder. You want a consistency that will stick to your brush. You do not want a consistent, if that fell off there now, it's too runny. So it may be different with the brand that you use, but I want it so that it sticks to the brush. That's the acid test. Like when you're making, when you're whipped eggs, you know, and they say, all right, you know, stick it above your head and make sure it doesn't fall off. I do not want it to fall off the brush. That is what you're looking for. Once you create a texture like that, you will absolutely get that kind of result. You want a egg white, whisked egg white texture. So that is a really, really important thing. That is probably one of the most important parts of anything that I will tell you today. So you need to get that consistency right for this to work. One, you'll get lighter results, and two, you'll get the color to stay exactly where you put it and not press onto hair around it. So we're just going to quickly talk about the premise of using less peroxide to powder. You may or may not know this already, so I'm just hoping that some people out there will take some information away from this. The less peroxide you put into the powder, so the less peroxide you put into the powder, the stronger the bleach is, the stronger the bleach is. So if we do it on a 1-to-1 mixing ratio, 10 grams of powder, 10 grams of bleach, we will have the strongest mixing ratio that any manufacturer recommends. They will also recommend you never ever apply that on scalp. Like they recommend you don't apply 40 volume on scalp. So 1 to 1. Oh, I've gone off again. I've just seen that. It's popped in the corner. I don't know why it's doing that. Sorry, guys.
You're starting to lag a bit, James.
Am I? Yeah.
It sounds beautiful, but you're starting to lag a little bit. We've got a question from someone, just while you're sorting that out. And let me try to find it. There's so many questions. Thanks for all the questions, guys. It's brilliant. You're throwing so many questions at us. Jade's asked, do you think the price is a bit unaffordable for the majority of the population? So what you charge, James, is it a bit unaffordable for the majority of people?
Good question. I'm still trying to sort out the camera, but I can answer the questions without any visuals. I'm not appealing to the majority of the population, Jade. That's the reality. Think about it this way. I'll go back to the bleach thing in just a second, but think about it this way. I work in the salon 3 days a week. I've got 8 appointments in the day. I can do a cut, a color and a cut, a color and a cut, a color and a cut. 3 clients in a day, 3 days a week, 9 clients total in a week. All right. Now, even if I was working 5 days, you know, I'd obviously have 15 clients. So we're talking 9 clients in a week. We're talking 36 in a month. Okay. And my clients are on an 8-week rotation. So I need a grand total of 72 clients to be absolutely fully booked all of the time that I'm in the salon. And so therefore, I just need 72 people who can afford me. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I don't need to put my prices so that everybody can afford me. I can just put my prices to the people who can. Now, if they can't afford me, then there's a whole range of prices below me that were trained by me. So they can go to them, and I can do the ones that want the premium service, the little bit more time, the more expertise, because even if I have trained the guys that are below me, I still have the edge on them because, you know, as I said, I am professionally improving my skills daily, weekly, as regular as possible. So that is really the most important thing of all, guys, is that you are only appealing to the people who can afford you, and you build your prices up. I didn't start charging that. It's taken me 10 years to get to that point. And what's happened is every year I've put my prices up, I've lost a few clients, but then I found a few more who can afford it. That's how it goes. So hopefully that will help you. I can see that I'm lagging out a bit here, but hopefully you can hear me nice and clearly.
We can hear you fantastic. And I'll just reiterate that, James, because, you know, I started my career in Essex, you know, in Southend, and, you know, I was charging £360 for a haircut, you know, and I think the nearest price to me in the town was probably £50, you know. So, you know, it all depends on the quality of your work. And like you say, if the quality's good, then there's always people that are going to want to pay for it, right?
Absolutely. And that's the reality. You know, I don't think, it's tricky, isn't it? Because
would you mind just turning your comments off for a sec? Because the lagging has happened since the comments have been coming in.
Right. Let's have a look at that, shall we?
Let's see if that helps.
Right. I'm back. Comments are off. I don't know. Let me see. So yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting point, and I think as a hairdresser, and to all you guys out there who, you know, maybe want to charge more, want to earn more money, you've got to build your prices up slowly. And when you increase your prices, you will lose people, but then you'll find new clients that are willing to pay the prices. So don't be afraid of putting your prices up because you're going to lose a few clients that you may enjoy doing their hair. Oh, I've lost my visuals again, haven't I? For goodness sake. Sorry, guys. This is the joys of modern technology and video conferencing and stuff like that.
And live.
I'm sure you will.
Shows and
live, yeah. I'm sure you guys will all appreciate the technical issues that you can face. So we do apologise for that on behalf of my internet connection. But hey, look, you can hear me, so that's fine. You don't need to see this face. I'm going to show you the finished result in a second, so I'm going to just sort my camera out and I'll bring it back on in a sec. But look, the point is you want to charge more money, guys. You want to, you know, make sure that at the end of the day, you know, that you appeal to the clients that you want in your salon. And of course, you know, the more they charge, the more they expect. So if you don't want people with high expectations, keep your prices down. But if you want people with higher expectations and equally more money to spend on their hair, then increase your prices slowly. I am working on the camera issue so we can see the finished result here. But any more questions, anybody? Please, Lee, read out some questions while I'm...
Oh, we've had so many questions. It's been amazing, fantastic questions through this session. So thank you very much, guys.
I'm back again.
You're back again? You're back again?
I'm back again. Yeah, there I am. It's interesting because all I have to do is click a few buttons, but it comes back. But right, and here is our finished result. One that I painted earlier. Here's one I did earlier.
That looks
and yeah, knockout result. You know, nice, gentle money piece type feel around the front here. You know, this is styled with your tongue, Lee. Actually, this one.
Oh, the long tongue.
Yeah, the long tongue. Yeah, this is styled with the Lee Stafford long tongue. Yeah, so really, really simple, really easy, really quick to do, super effective. You know, and the great thing is, you know, you've got lovely contrast in it as well. It's got great contrast in the look, you know, so you're getting that dimension in the hair that you wouldn't ordinarily get if you painted too many of the sections. So hopefully that helps you to understand what this will look like once it's processed and how that creates the look. And it's a very speedy, easy technique to do. And that's it from me until later on, when I hope you will join us in the live debrief. That would be absolutely wonderful to have you all back, because by then you may have thought of some wonderful questions. Obviously, you've asked loads and loads of questions. What we might try and get the chance to do today is trawl through some of the questions that you've already asked. I've gone off again. Trawl through some of the questions that you've already asked and try and answer some of those questions. So it'll be well worth coming back to us to join in that debrief. You'll probably say, wouldn't it be great if the camera worked all the time? And of course, you know, that will be a very valid point. I'm not sure why it's not 100% working at the moment, but I do live streams 8 to 10 times a month, and I don't normally get this. So maybe it's StreamYard. I don't use StreamYard normally, but that's the streaming service that we're going through. So these are the technical joys of delivering wonderful content to you from the virtues of our own home. Lee is in Sheffield. I am in Brighton. You know, we are hundreds of miles apart. You are all over the country. But its opportunity is priceless because, as I said previously, there is a lot of free education out there, but it doesn't always necessarily directly correlate to the things that you guys are doing within your academies as an LSE teacher. You know, this is key information that is directly pointed at what you already know, that you can expand your knowledge with. Remember, we've got a competition coming up, Lee, haven't we? Lee Stafford Education competition, and I'm a big fan of competition. I think it's really healthy. It really it separates the wheat from the chaff, and it makes brings the people forward that are going to thrive and strive in this particular industry, and it separates the ones that aren't necessarily going to cut the mustard. In a bigger sense, you know, obviously competition isn't for everyone, but it can really ignite the careers of a young individual. I did lots and lots of competitions in my early days. In fact, I won the commercial day look when I was at college at Blackpool in the apprenticed UK Championships hairdressing, and it wasn't the ignition, it wasn't the biggest spark in my career, but it was that moment that I realized that actually I could take this further than just a small time job. I wanted to be on stage actually at the time, but this is the equivalent to being on stage right now. I wanted to be on stage and teaching hair and showing people how to do hair. And then I went to Salon International, and people like Lee inspired me. And so, it is really one of those things that can define you as a creative, or you can just decide to sit back and not get involved. Obviously, and my camera's gone off again for some reason. It was going so well, wasn't it, for so long, and now it's really doing me nutting.
You're going to show everybody the diagram, the pre-sectioning at 5 o'clock.
I'm going to draw everybody the diagram, so it's well worth coming back. 5 o'clock. Listen, at 5 o'clock, we're not going to be on for an hour. It will just be the debrief. It will take 15, 30 minutes, dependent on how many questions there are. So it'd be nice just to check back in with you guys, and it is wonderful. I am a big feedback fan. I don't want sycophantic feedback. I don't want you to say, oh, everybody say it was wonderful. We want dead truths from you guys. Give us your honest feedback. We'd love to hear from you.
The debrief is all about, yes, we want to know what worked today, because it's important we carry on doing what worked, but even more importantly, or just as importantly, most definitely, is what can we do better next time so we can keep improving and improving. James, you've been an absolute dream, mate, like normal, a true professional. Great technique, loved watching it. Thank you all for the questions, fantastic. And we hope to see you at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So guys, have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and we'll see you all again very, very soon.
See you at 5 o'clock, guys. Do join us. Ciao. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.